Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. God bless you, Pastor David Trainum, coming into your heart, your life, your car, your home, wherever you're listening to this program at. Thanking you for tuning in. In a couple of seconds, I'm going to continue in the series that I've started that I entitled Keys to Life. And today we're going to be talking about and revealing who am I? And as I said last week, and I won't say this every week, but as I said last week, the teachings now are going to be a little bit shorter with the hopes that the contents that are going to be beneficial to you. You'll be able to embrace them, grab them. If you have to listen to it a couple of times, you can do that. And we'll be teaching and talking about these things for probably maybe 10, 15 minutes each week. Okay. And so as I share my history, this is who am I or who I am. As I share my history and using my life as an example, and as I do this, it's done to reflect the thoughts that many other people have who's had the pleasure of seeing more than 40, 50, 60, 70 years on this earth. And if you remain open, I believe that what I share can help you in your own life, help you to articulate similar circumstances that you may have faced. And it will let you know that you are not alone in what you have faced as you have gone through your life. Now, first of all, I am a product of the South End of Albany. I was born and raised there. I am also a product educated in the public city school system of Albany, New York. And although I gained knowledge during that time, I didn't see the importance of getting the high school diploma that my father stressed. And I only did what I needed to do in that particular part of my life in order to get by. I probably could have been a better student. I probably could have had greater grades and greater relationships, but I never pushed myself. I only did, in a sense, the minimum just to pass. You see, my father wanted us to graduate from high school because his education was cut short at the sixth grade. And one of his requirements from each of his six children was that we would graduate from high school. Five of us graduated from Philip Schuyler High School, and our youngest brother, Toby, he graduated from Albany High School after Albany High and Schuyler merged in the early 70s. And I attribute my early character development to the upbringing that I received from my parents, who instilled moral values in me and in my five siblings. They encouraged us to accept people as they are and do what we can to make life better. My parents, they sacrificed many of their hopes and dreams, not seeing what they did as being a sacrifice. They viewed being parents as their obligation to us because they viewed us as gifts to them on this earth. And they chose to invest in us. And in doing so, James and Esther Trainum, they have a lasting legacy. And my character was also developed by the friendships I established and the employers that I had. One notable employer I mentioned last week while they hired me on my 14th birthday at the Southern Fruit Garden. But one notable employer who had an impact on me was a gentleman by the name of Nick DeNova. He was the owner of that Southern Fruit Garden, 341 South Pearl Street. He gave me my first opportunity as a meaningful employment as a stock clerk. And through my tenure there, he encouraged me to pursue my dreams. And he would say that I was like a sponge and would understand and do anything that I was given the chance to do and given the time to learn. And those words of encouragement, it helped me through challenging moments when I was in corporate America. When I was faced with things that seemed impossible, those words would come. Dave, you're like a sponge. You can do anything that you set your mind to. You can do anything if you have the time to learn. And as I learned, I realized that it was also an example in scripture that I was an overcomer and that I could embrace those things many years later. Now, when I received Jesus Christ as my Savior when I was 28 years old, I practiced what I read. I compared the things that I previously learned and my experiences to what the Bible said would benefit me. One of the things, I say this often, and I said it in our recent teaching, and I may say it again during this teaching. My friends, a lot of times what we do is we get saved and we try to make what God said conform to how we think, but it has to be just the opposite. And that's what I did. Instead of me saying, I'm 28 years old, I've got all of this experience, and what I learn about God, I'm going to now take that and put it on top of my experiences. No, I have to submit my experiences to what God said. And if my experiences do not line up with what God said, then at that particular point, what I have to do is make certain that I put aside my thoughts about how something should be and embrace what God's thoughts are. And because my desire is to represent Christ as best that I could, some of the habits that I had to change. And some of the things that I was doing, I had to give up altogether so that I could have a clear conscience in life. I learned through the scriptures that if my heart did not condemn me, that I would have peace with God. And therefore, when there was an uneasiness in my heart, when I said something that wasn't right, or I did something that I should not have done, or I may have thought something that I should not dwell on, I made the choice to change those habits and mindsets. Because it's peace that we are pursuing, and that keeps us in the midst of the storms. Now, I'm glad that I also learned at a young Christian age that most change takes time. Yes, there are times when God delivers us immediately, even as He delivered me immediately from drugs and alcoholism. But you got to understand, my experience, just like your experience with God, is not the standard for how God works in everybody else's life. Therefore, one of the things that I never did was I never used God delivering me supernaturally from drugs and alcohol, as the standard for everybody else's life, because some people had to go to a Alcoholic Anonymous. They had to go to get help from counseling. You see, me, I was immediately delivered from drugs the moment I received Christ. However, I had to work on my language, as I remember reverting back to an unwholesome word when a coworker consistently provoked me. Eventually, I gave him what he wanted, and his response when I got out of character, and it wasn't real bad, it wasn't a four-letter word, but it was out of character. Then he says, I thought you were a Christian. You see, that day in the mid 80s, it was the last swear word that I spoke, even when I was provoked. You see, over the years, I learned how to trust God, how to extend faith, how to have patience, and how to keep hope active in my life. I realized that trials and tribulations are subject to change. And if I live to please God, that they would eventually work out in my favor. And most importantly, I believe that I became a more compassionate and loving person. You see, I want to see righteousness, peace, love, joy, and unity prevail in the world that surrounds me. And I want everyone to be at peace and comfortable when they're in my presence. And again, I'm still not perfect. However, I believe I'm maturing every day, and I'm becoming more like God as I read and I practice His word. And through the life that I live and the legacy of the Trainum, the Mormon, and the Pope families, many enduring relationships and friendships have been built that still impacts my life to this day. Too numerous to mention, but many people have come into my life because of my brothers, my sisters, my mom, and my dad. I have great relationships because of my aunts and my uncles, my cousins, my in-laws, and my close friends who I allowed into my life. And I'm all the more blessed because of them. And the same is true for the hundreds of associations that I've had the privilege of developing in our city and around the region. These associations, they span the spectrum of society, made up of people of all levels and all races. And I value each person that's been placed in my life, and I try to conduct my life according to how the scriptures reveal. You see, it's very important for us to understand that relationships are critical for us fulfilling our vision, fulfilling the purpose for which we have been born. As a matter of fact, I was told that if I had the relationships that Pastor Dave has, my life would be so much better. I'm not going to say it would be better, but you see, you have the relationships in your life that you allow in. And one of the things about relationships is this: if you're going to develop a relationship, you have to learn how to accept people as they are, with their flaws. And I'm not talking about people who are raunchy, who are stealing, who are lying, who are doing drugs and alcohol and all that other stuff, getting close. I'm not saying that you're not going to have any association with them, but I'm talking about real strong relationships. They have to be people that's going in the same direction that you're going in. And so the thing about relationships is you cannot abuse them and expect them to produce God's intended results. You cannot use people and expect them to remain in your life as a faithful friend. You cannot enter the lives of people only looking to get something from them without bringing something into the relationship. However, every interaction can produce a positive experience that builds you up if you view each one of them as an opportunity to make both your life better and their life better. I end today's teaching saying this: the greatest knowledge that I gained about fostering change is that patience and showing up are two timeless attributes. You see, both must be consistent in your life. I watched and I learned as I sat on boardrooms, on boards and at boardroom tables. I watched and I learned as I sat in community forums and around break room tables. I learned what to do, how to conduct my life, and I learned what not to do. And I learned that fostering significant change takes time. It takes sitting on a board while you are the only opposing vote, sometimes for years, until your voice becomes the dominant voice that brings change. You see, my friends, this takes, I believe, a wisdom and a patience that comes from God that will eventually cause the tide to turn. The thing I say, and I will say it again before this series is over with, we have to learn to work within the system in order to change the system. Okay? So, with that said, my friend, I end today's teaching thanking you for, again, giving me the opportunity to speak into your life. I will be back next week. I look forward to it as we continue to encourage your life, hopefully strengthening you through the things that I went through and the things that you can associate with. So, Pastor David Trainum, God bless you so much. I know that God has his hand on your life. Pursue your dream, pursue your vision, because God is going to bring you all the way through. I love you, and God bless you.